This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 95. Welcome to Comic Geek Speak. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Matt.
I'm Peter Rios.
We are sexy bitches, yeah!
And welcome to the show.
And this episode is sponsored by Crazy Comics. And on the phone with us is Sam Vera. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Good yourself?
Good. How was the Big Apple Comic-Con for you?
It was pretty cool. I guess the weather played a big part on the crowd, I guess. It wasn't as big as that you would normally expect on a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
But they had some real die-hard fans there, and it was a good crowd. But it was pretty cool.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about Crazy Comics. What kind of projects you got coming out, and the outreach program you have with the YMCA programs? Okay,
I guess I'll start with the YMCA and then I'll go into the projects. The YMCA, that came about at the Big Apple Convention. A woman came over to our table, and she was actually the director of new projects for the YMCA. And she was impressed at some of the educational things that we put into our projects. We had some trading cards with some trivia questions that you have to answer by picking up the book. So she asked us to come and just speak. We did that, and I guess at the YMCA they asked the kids whether or not they would want us back, and they took a vote, and from that point on we started touring several locations, and then they signed us on as specialists during the summer to teach how to create your own comic books.
And this is in New York?
Yeah, this is New York. We were in Westchester and in New York.
And
in Manhattan.
And how's that been?
It was awesome. It was pretty awesome, and the kids are great. A lot of talented young kids, and it's pretty good to. And the YMCA locations, I guess, they're in communities where some of these kids wouldn't have certain opportunities. So it was pretty exciting to be able to share some of our knowledge and then see what transpires on the kids' end. So I mean, they really took to it, and they just ran with it.
Cool. And what kind of? And let's talk a little bit about your comics. What did you push at the show?
At the Big Apple, we promoted what we currently have right now, which is our newest title is "There's an Alien in My Toilet," which is a sci-fi comedy book about this egocentric, thinks he knows it all alien sent to Earth to gather information to determine whether or not Earth is a threat for his planet. But he finds that just dealing with animals is a lot more difficult than he expected. And we also have a book called Forbidden, which is one of our popular books at conventions. And it's a fantasy book. It's a dramatic book. We have an artist, Anibal Arroyo, who's actually penciling that story. I wrote that story. And one of our longest-running books is Cosmic Wars and Rush 5377. Totally different. Each book is different from the next. George Medina created Rush 5377, and I created Cosmic Wars, which we're actually working on a 3D animated version of it, but this has been taking time because we're producing it ourselves at Crazy Comics.
And the Forbidden is when I was reading through the press release, it's a fantasy. It's sort of along the lines of what they were trying to do across gen. The artwork, I have 3 pages here. It look cool.
Thanks. Yes, it's real intense drama, and it's basically about a group of hunters centuries ago who basically entered a sacred land, and the dwellers within that land went and confronted them and asked the elders to give back those hunters who desecrated their land. They didn't, so a curse was cast upon them, and basically they would burn in the sun, and so they went underground, never to be seen again. Centuries later, the Earth has evolved. Modern-day technology, they never have. They've been underground. No one even knows they exist. So there's a son who challenges his father, says, how do you know this curse still exists? The father imprisons his son. And so the son commits the ultimate sin, and he commits murder to escape. And on the surface, they're actually descendants of the creatures that cast the curse. There's an overlord. His name is David Hunter. He's a multi-billion-dollar mogul, and he knows that the son of Vox has escaped, and he's actually the key to destroying David Hunter's plans. So now they have to stop him at all costs. So it's a mix of old versus new.
Where can you get these? You get them from your site?
You can get it from our site in various locations right now. We were self-distributing for a while. and you can get them in New York City at Midtown Comics and Jim Henley's Universe. You can get it at Comics Press, and offsite at Kitsune, at Mile High Comics in Denver and in San Diego. So we have various locations, which if you go to our site, you'll be able to see where it's available. But come the summer, we will be available nationwide.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, and how are you going to do that? Through Diamond or?
Yes, through Diamond. Being an independent is kind of rough getting into Diamond.
I believe it.
These guys are tough nuts to crack. So we were finally approached by them, even though they turned us down a couple of times with no real answer as to why. And now they've approached us at the San Diego convention. So now we're just waiting for that green light as to when it'll be in previews.
Oh, that's cool. I'm looking at the Russ comic, and would it be, and this is totally just like an initial kind of like thought about it, kind of reminds me of cartoon graffiti art. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's a pretty unique style of drawing. It's completely George's trademark, and Russ is this kid that basically he grows up in a home for boys, and that home is being run by this mad scientist trying to create the perfect specimen. So what he does is implants a chip into these kids' heads and wipes away their memory. Well, Russ starts remembering his past. He starts having these dreams and say, hey, there's more to my life than what they're telling me. And so he starts realizing some of his friends are disappearing one at a time. And so as he researches, he realizes, wait, there's something wrong with this place, and now he has to try to save his friends and escape from the clutches of this mad scientist.
And where are your inspirations? Why do you want to create comics?
Wow, just like
not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, it's tough because in the beginning, like everyone else, you aspire to work for like the big companies like Marvel or DC. But then as you get older and you realize that, hey, you know what? I have a story that I want to tell, and I want to share with the public. And doing that, you might not be able to because you'd be working under someone else's, basically timeline and their projects. So, it's a tough endeavor to try to do it independent. You have a lot of mountains to try to overcome. But the end result is you see a finished product that you've done. You hear something from somebody who's actually picked it up and they like it. So that the end result is the fact that someone else is pleased by your project, or you've entertained someone for that brief moment, and you have total creative control.
Yeah, there aren't many people who can, there are a lot of people out there who love comics, who want to do comics and be in comics, but there aren't many that can say that they've actually produced a comic.
Yeah,
they're not working for, DC, Marvel, or wherever else, or self-published.
Yeah, it's a rough industry, which is why some of the things that I do is try to promote outside of the industry. I try to get to any outlet that'll hear us. If I have a sci-fi-related book, I'll try to get on a sci-fi network or sci-fi-related program to promote it. If I have a fantasy book, I try to get, target the markets for that specific product outside of the comic medium, and eventually start building and people start talking inside the comic book medium about what we're doing. So I work around the actual norm, and I go to schools, and we we tour schools and churches, and just to promote, and any event that we can go to, we just go and promote it, and just not follow the normal path that everyone else would, and just try to build momentum and just get people to talk about it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, as crazy as there's an alien in my toilet. As crazy as that title sounds, and I guess that's why you're called Crazy Comics.
Yeah.
The covers, it reminds me of the old '80s Boris the Bear kind of stuff, where it's poking fun at the covers anywhere, poking fun at like Rambo, Matrix, even the superhero titles. Yes.
That's exactly. I try to play off his ego, and where his mind is at the time, because he thinks he's the unstoppable, the most intellectual. And we have a spin-off book. His name is Duty, and he's from the planet Uranus, but we pronounce it Uranus. And in that book, we have a cameo from Cosmic Gorf, which is from the book Cosmic Wars. And basically, you get to learn a lot about Duty's mindset when he engages Gorf in a conversation at a pub. And, he's talking about how he was victorious on Earth when Gorf actually challenges him and says, wait, I heard about what happened with this bear and what happened with this turtle. So It's fun. It's a fun book, and I actually write the story based on how I illustrate it. I have it in my mind. I know how it plays out, and I illustrate it first, and it's unconventional as to how I actually create a book. So it's actually fun. It dictates itself when I write it.
And Cosmic Wars is going to be, you have that in production to be a movie, correct?
Yeah, we're working on it ourselves. I'm a digital media major, and we're working on it inside, and we're actually pitching it to networks. But we're working out kinks. Doing 3D. 3D is even harder to try to be a small press. So it's a lot of building wireframes and landscapes and movements and skeletons, and so. It's a project, Cosmic Wars, I created when I was about 12, 13 years old, and at that time it was called The Adventures of Cosmic Gorf. And so now it's something I'm passionate about, so I'm taking my time with it.
Great. And you're going to be at New York Comic Con, correct?
Yes. We're doing a promotion with Jim Hanley's Universe. Anybody who stops by the Jim Hanley table at the New York City Comic Con will get a poster and a coupon, and with that coupon they can come over to our table in Artist Alley and redeem it for an autographed copy of one of our titles.
Well, we're going to be there, so we look forward to meeting you guys.
Outstanding, yes, we do too.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's we've been waiting for this convention forever. Something big, something
in New York. You mean?
Yes, right? In New York. That can compete with like the Wizard Worlds, and something that come on, they brought in Tom McFarlane. I'm a big fan of his, and he doesn't show up anywhere, except for San Diego. So that alone in itself is an accomplishment.
You're going to be at New York Comic Con. You're going to be at the Big Apple Comic Con in March 31st through April 1st and 2nd. Let's see, in June 24th, 25th, another Big Apple Comic Con. You'll be at San Diego.
Yes, we'll be at San Diego. And we just got invited to go to the New York Comic Book Spectacular. It's a one-day show, which is, I believe, in March. So we'll be there as well.
Great. Do you read comics? I assume you have to read something, right?
Yeah, I do read comics. I read a lot of Star Wars novels, but I read like Robert Jordan stuff. But I do read comics, and I've been a big Spawn fan forever. And I'm very specific as to what I want to pick up. I'll pick up some stuff from Dark Horse, like Star Wars or Conan, and independent stuff. I read more independent. Batman, I'm a big buff of. That's the only thing from DC I actually pick up. But other than that, it's usually the small press guys I usually pick up, because that's where the heart is. Exactly. Everything else is like mass produced. There's a gimmick to it. There's a method to it. But in the indie world, there's heart. And you see different styles of writing and styles of art, and it's more creative.
Well, I know a lot of our listeners, there's a lot out there that read the Star Wars, read Conan, that really push the small press, so I'm sure they're happy to hear that.
Yeah, small press all the way.
So give somebody out there a final push, a final promotion for Crazy Comics, something that'll help sell, that you think will really catch their ear.
Well, we're just regular guys out to make new friends. When you stop by and you meet us, you're meeting a new friend. We're engaging you, and with no expectations. Whether you pick up the book or you don't, it's just the fact that we had a conversation. We learned about you, you learned about us, and our motto is catch the craze. If you met us and you walked away with a smile, that we're happy, and we made a lot of friends, on the road, and that in itself. And just hearing back from them on the forums, or where they write us letters, or when they come back to the events and just stop by to say, "Hey guys, how you doing?" That in itself is great. So with us, we're doing what we love to do. We have the finished product, and that's the enjoyment right there. Just meeting new people makes it even better.
Do you have preview pages on your site?
Yes, we do, and right now I'm actually, as we're talking, I'm actually updating the site. So there will be some preview pages for all the newer titles, like Alien on My Toilet and Rush 5377 Part 3, which is coming out at the New York City Comic Con, and Forbidden Part 2, which will be out at the New York City Comic Con. So we do have some previews. If you go to crazycomics.com, there's some links to like Cosmic Wars, which is a sub-site which is devoted specifically to that book, and the same for Rush and Forbidden.
And I have to ask, what do your significant others think of all this?
In the beginning, she was a little concerned, but then, because she thought, it's a big expense to take on.
Sure.
But because we design websites and we, design logos and we're graphic artists, we have a lot of clients, and so that's how we fund the Crazy Comics. I've done stuff for Discovery Channel and for Emerson Radio and Life from Earth Entertainment. So and I keep getting jobs here and there. So that's what funds Crazy Comics and the projects we do at schools and at the YMCA. So when she realized that, hey, we do have a business plan, and I'm not going to blow away our home income on this. So she's very supportive, and she allows me the time to do what I have to do, but as long as it doesn't affect the quality time at home.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any last minute statements? Anything you want to say?
Thank you guys for having me on, and to all you guys out there who know us, thank you guys, and those of you who we will meet, it's time for you to catch the craze.
Awesome. We'll be looking for you at New York Comic Con then.
Awesome. We can't wait to see you guys.
Great.
You too.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's Crazy Comics, www.crazy with 2 E's, not a Y, comics.com. Check him out.
You sound like a nice guy.
Yeah. He's got, like he said, it's about the heart, right? Everybody always telling us the small publishers are the ones that are doing it for the love of it. So he certainly sounds like that.
That's cool.
And their press packet is amazing. I want a press packet like this for me, not even for the show, but for myself.
Yes, look at me. I'm 33 years old, available. I'm a Scorpio. What the hell? I don't even know.
You vain bastard.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
All right.
I bet you think this podcast's about you, huh?
Oh, stop. Thank you, Carly Simon.
Speaking of vanity, that was a good reference.
That's how I was trying to segue.
Speaking of vanity, I hold before me our newspaper article.
Yay.
Which, if you're not on the forum, you probably didn't get a chance to see yet. I'm going to put a link to it on our website, hopefully by the time this episode airs or shortly thereafter. But our local newspaper did an article on us, and I think it came out quite well.
Yeah.
I was very pleased.
I'm nervous sometimes. You do an interview, and then you get to the article, and there's like 1 or 2 facts that are wrong or something that's really... Yeah. This one was spot on.
It really was.
I was worried they were going to put a quote in there for me that was stupid, but they did the right move by putting no quote in there.
You saved that for the show.
I saved that for the show.
So I assumed, Peter, from some of the information that was here, that the reporter did call you off, when we weren't all together.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And she asked great questions, and you could really tell that even though a lot of the questions didn't get into what she was using it for was just an overall idea of the show, and that she could really understand what this was about. And I thought she nailed it, and yeah, it's a great write-up.
Yeah, I definitely was pleased, and the layout is cool. The
big iPod,
big giant picture of an iPod with one of the photos of us inside the screen, which looks cool, and color photo and everything. And they got us listed advertising our 100th episode. Yep. Which is coming up Sunday, January 22nd, at the Golden Eagle Comics in the Fairground Square Mall. Get there about noonish. We'll start recording somewhere about 2. So if you are within striking distance, come on down and join us. That should be fun.
So far, we have somebody coming 7 hours away
from Ohio.
Yes,
that's loyalty.
Yeah,
that is loyalty.
All you have to do is just spend at least $5.
Yep.
To support to help out Lem. For thanking him for letting us use his place.
Yep.
Which is a pretty good deal, because if you look through some of their back issue stuff, they have that selection.
Hey, that's Shane. Probably.
Also, we're going to have a door prize. A $25 door prize. All you got to do is come in and put your name and address or whatever, and we'll pick one winner out of a hat or jar or somebody's pants, and you're going to win $25 to In Stock Trades. You're not actually going to win like a gift certificate. We're going to just take your name and pass it on to Cameron at In Stock Trades, and you'll have $25 to spend. So that was a cool new thing to add to the as like a thank you for these guys coming on.
And more motivation to show up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's cool.
Welcome, Shane.
Hello.
Reminder that our book of the month for January is Aranya Volume 1, Heart of the Spider Digest. It's available from InStockTrades.com for only $4.80. And in January, we have 2 contests, both that end at the end of the month. One has to do with toys, and the other has to do with drawing. And both for details are on our website, which is comicgeekspeak.com for anybody who's listening for the very first time. Yeah, any other news we need to...
Yeah, we sold our soul recently and set up a MySpace account.
What?
MySpace, you know what MySpace is?
Yeah.
That's where everyone's hooking up on.
Did you see it on the forum? I posted it on the forum.
No, I haven't been on the forum all weekend.
Oh, okay, that's why you didn't see it. I just threw it together one day, and it's got our logo, and we already have like 19, 20 friends and listeners of the show.
Right.
And it's just going to be a way to, push the show. I put the logo up as our picture, the one that looks like the Superman colors. And it's www.myspace.com/comicgeekspeak. And then, who knows what we'll have on there. Maybe we'll have some announcements or, I don't know, something. We'll figure it out.
That's cool. That's the logo that I use for my laptop.
Is it?
Desktop now.
Yeah. One of the things I thought we could possibly do, it might be kind of cool to like put announcements up there if we know we're recording that night, like maybe early in the day. For those people who happen to check their MySpace, they might, I don't know, have a cool announcement that nobody else knows, and I don't know what it'll be, but you never know.
Like a revelation?
Yeah, like maybe we want to talk about something in the show, and maybe somebody wants to email us real quick, and I don't know. We'll figure out what we're going to do with that site, but MySpace is crazy addictive.
Yeah.
You go to one profile, then the next, and then the next, and you're suddenly 2 hours go by.
Your social networking. Peter.
That's so I have to look at that. Mike Norton was talking about that. That a couple of you guys had joined it, and I haven't gotten on it yet to do that.
Mike Norton's one of our friends.
Yeah, that's a nice place to meet.
Here we
people
go.
on. No.
Oh,
but no. Like a lot of people, rather than use a dating service, or just
right.
If you hear their meetings
that's all
from
it's
MySpace.
for. Yeah, that's all it's for. Hannah joined. I forget who our first one was that actually joined. Sorry about that, but
sorry, first timer.
Sorry.
By the way, I haven't pimped it for a while, but if you are listening and you have not gone on our website and clicked the world domination map and added yourself, please do so. It's entirely free. It doesn't require anything but typing in your email address and your city. And we have people from all over the world. We have over 500 on there now, I think, or very close. And it's just a lot of fun to click around and look at where all the different people are who listen. So please add yourself. And you talk about the MySpace thing. Apple released an update to their iLife suite, and I ordered it right away. And one of the things it allows you to do is this thing called photo casting, which is pretty cool. And you can set up like a photo album, and then whenever I add photos to it, anybody who subscribes to it, much like the podcast, those photos will be automatically downloaded for them. So I was thinking of doing something like that with, pictures from us from whenever we go to conventions, or perhaps some of the original artwork that these guys draw, and we put it in the gallery or something like that. So I'll see when I get the software. I'll let you know if I'm going to do that. It could be kind of interesting. People don't have to go to they can get images locally automatically. It'd be kind of fun. Since we're podcasters, we might as well photocast too, right?
Then videocast.
Hey, we got something. We're working on something. Should we do an email?
Sure.
One from a guy named Smads. That's all he has, so I don't know. This is weird. Bear with me as I read this. It looks like his email program kind of like broke it up funny, so I'm going to try to do my best here. Hello, I am really enjoying the podcast, but I have a problem I'm hoping you can help me with. As a comic collector and reader, it is hard to choose what to buy and not buy with such a limited budget. We always leave comics or books out so we can afford others. Let me give you a little background on my selection process, then maybe you can understand my problem. I get a few comics each month, not many because I want to own books with comics in them, like the Masterworks and Archives edition. It is cheaper and does not take as much room to store them. But I don't like black and white comics and do not like softcover or trade paperback. In the end, by being this way, I've come to realize I am very limited in my selection and comics. The problem I have is that I do not want to collect black and white comics. I cannot give in on that. But what is your opinion on trade paperback and softcover comics? Do they hold up as well as hardcovers? And I'm having a hard time just looking at places online and being able to determine if a book is black and white or not. Like the digest, are all of them color? And the essentials, are all of them black and white? As you can see, I am very confused and do not know which way to spend my money to my satisfaction of a book that is color and will last for years to come. I do appreciate your time and opinion. Thanks, Smads. Well, all the essentials are black and white.
As well as the showcases.
From DC. And that will always be that way. That is, as far as we know, that will always be that way because that's the reason they're so cheap. Everything else is in color unless the book was drawn in black and white originally.
And even some black and white books are traded in color. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes they add color.
Right. So, if you're buying a trade paperback, you can assume that it's in color. And all the digests from Marvel and everything, they're all color. Everything's color.
Well, and if you look online when you're buying something, most times I've noticed where the description will say B&W if it's black and white. I don't think it says anything if it's color. Maybe it does say color, but I know it says...
sometimes like full color.
Full color, yeah. But I know it says B&W for black and white.
And as far as trades holding up, I've never had a problem. I have trades I've had for years and years.
Only if I beat the hell out of reading it. Right. That's the only problem I've had. My original Watchmen trade yellowed a little bit, but I used to carry that thing around like crazy. So,
but the same could happen with a hardcover with the yellowing. But it's not like the bindings are falling apart or anything like that.
Nope. Again, only if I'm reading it 1,000 times.
Yeah. So.
Well, we had this conversation probably off the air, I think, maybe, or was it during? I forget, where we talked about certain comics that are. Do they really warrant a hardcover? Even, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like books where they always go to hardcover first and then softcover. Not always, but. I don't want certain things in hardcover, obviously because they're going to be more expensive. But
Marvel's been doing that a lot lately, where they're releasing things as a hardcover. Because first it was because they had the oversized hardcover. Now it's the Premier Edition, which is the same size, just a hardcover, and then 3 months later, then they release the softcover, the same thing. And it's kind of like the way the book publishing world works. Mm-hmm. But it's not everything. It's only like their top sellers, which I guess is acceptable if you're. If it's the most popular stuff, but
then you have like Batman, Superman, which every story arc seem to go hardcover first and then softcover. I don't know that you need everything in hardcover.
Well, that's kind of the same thing as Marvel. Well, it's their top seller, or was, when it was on time.
Yeah, how about it?
And so they figured, well, we'll milk this and get a little more money. And you can't blame them. And some people like hardcovers.
Oh no,
I like them too. I've bought a bunch of those Marvel ones just because I don't want to wait. I already waited for the trade. Now I don't want to wait another 3 or 4 months for the actual trade. I'll fine with the hardcover because we're getting it for almost 50% off anyway. So
and between that and if you have like you have a nice library set up, I have more of a comic book set up. But if you have something where you like to see all the nice spines and you like hardcovers, like Absolutely. I like my novels in hardcover, I'll even wait to get certain things on Sci-Fi Book Club that I know are coming in hardcover because it's the member edition as opposed to the trade paperback little. Paperback book that bookstores carry. So I like my hardcovers in certain things too.
But I think when he was talking about, he doesn't like black and white, you're going to rob yourself of some pretty interesting reads, I think, if you don't dip into essentials or showcases. Because I don't think, unless you have the money to spend on Masterworks and archives, but, the showcase stuff is going pretty much Silver Age, it seems like.
And there aren't any... archives for Silver Age stuff, really.
They have the DC archives. Yeah,
but aren't most of them Golden Age stuff?
Most are, but they have like Doom Patrol and they have Adam Strange.
A couple, but like all this, the showcases that have come out so far with the Superman and the Green Lantern, none of that's archived, right?
The Green Lantern is, the Justice League is.
Yep.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
What else?
Is Metamorpho? Did he have I don't think he has an archive yet.
No, I don't think he did, because that was the big push for Showcase.
Yeah.
But there are some. There's more than
kind of half and half.
Than
the Marvel stuff.
That stuff.
There's a bunch that's in Masterworks, but there's also a bunch lately that there is never going to be Masterworked. Like Spider-Woman Essentials, Luke Cage at Marvel 2-in-1 or whatever. That's not going to be
Kill Raven.
No.
Right. So, and if you're a reader, it's worth reading it. Unless you have, and if you don't want to go buy comic books, but you want to buy a collected edition, those. I mean, it's great to just read, and you forget that it's not in color. You're just focusing on reading it, and it's cheap, $16 or whatever. For 25 books.
I used to be very adamant when I was younger. Now I'm 33. I used to be very adamant, maybe when I was 16, 18, about no black and white at all. And I found that I did miss out on a lot just of new stuff at that time that I've gone back and read some of. But like you said with the showcase and the essentials, you're going to miss out on a whole lot if you don't open up a little bit to try it at least. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, and you just accept the fact that you're not going to read those stories. But if you give it a chance, you may enjoy it more than you think.
Yeah.
And we should mention Chris at Collected Comics Library, who does a podcast all about this very topic.
That's what I was thinking when I was reading this. I'm like, we almost should have. You send this email up to Chris. He can help you. But I mean, and Chris will be more than happy to help you.
He goes out of his way to find collected editions, whether they're rare or not, and he loves older stuff as well. So he's probably right in the boat that this guy's in. And he also celebrated his 50th episode not too long ago.
Yes, he did.
Congratulations.
Cool. He was giving some stuff away, too.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find another one here.
They keep adding more and more podcasts to listen to.
All right. Let's see here. We got one. Comments on episode 92 from Lynn Walker. Gentlemen, I think... okay, I'm just going to read it. I very much enjoyed your spotlight on The Flash and thought your coverage of the Wally West Flash period was excellent. I was a little disappointed in your coverage of the Flash in the Golden and Silver Ages, however. I was glad to hear mention of the characters introduced in Flash Comics #1, but wish you had managed to convey just how good that book really was and how important to comics in general. It not only introduced the Flash, Hawkman, and Johnny Thunder, but it provided a background mythology for all three characters that is still being used in JSA. It has been reprinted in its entirety twice, Famous First Edition and Millennium Edition, and really should be read by every fan of Hawkman, the Flash, or the JSA. You good-naturedly poke fun at the Golden Age silly origin for Jay Garrick, but didn't mention how good some of those Gardner Fox, Robert Kanigher, and John Broome Golden Age stories were. You correctly congratulated Jeff Johns for using Rival from Flash 104, reprinted in Flash 211, but neglected to applaud the original excellent Broome Infantino story. Infantino, by the way, drew the Golden Age Flash in a style reminiscent of Milton Caniff, very different from his portrayal of the Silver Age Flash, but very attractive. In some ways, it's unfortunate that the DC Archive series reprints stories by sequence rather than quality, because many Golden Age characters' best stories are not their earliest ones. I have no desire to have to read every appearance of all the characters reprinted in the archives, but I would like to read the best stories. The 100-page Flash issues from the 70s reprinted some excellent Jay Garrick tales, most much better than the stories in the Golden Age Flash archives. In fact, giant-sized Flash issues were almost always very good about reprinting Golden Age stories featuring both Jay Garrick and Johnny Quick, and those issues were well worth seeking out. The recently reprinted Flash Annual #1 would be a good place to start reading. I have more of an attachment to Barry Allen than any of you, and suppose it is because I am a little bit older. The Infantino-drawn Flash stories were smooth and sleek, and the Flash truly looked like he was traveling at lightning speeds. I can't think of another series that can compete with its elegance. Of course, the stories were important too. Not only did the Flash usher in the Silver Age, but he laid the foundation for many of the motifs used in Wally's run. Flash of Two Worlds, Flash number 123, brought back Jay Garrick and introduced the concept of multiple speedsters, something that was reinforced when Wally West was introduced. The JSA came soon thereafter, first appearing not in Justice League but in the pages of The Flash. Time travel, fantastic rogues, the adventures of stunning imagination were all hallmarks of this great Silver Age series. I was disappointed that the spark of imagination that had so effectively ignited the book seemed to go out in the early 80s. I imagine sales were down, and in my opinion, the measures taken to save the book only intensified the problems. The Flash began to have the same kinds of problems as Peter Parker. His love interest was apparently killed, and a lengthy, tedious storyline began with that. I couldn't stand to buy the book any longer, and wasn't surprised that Barry Allen was killed off in Crisis, though I was disappointed. I felt that Barry Allen deserved better than to be written into a hole and then killed off in an incomprehensible storyline which no one was supposed to be able to remember. Afterwards, anyway. Barry deserved a better death, though I think Mark Waid did a marvelous job of saving Barry's botched death and portraying him as a true hero. Thank you for providing a character spotlight, which reminded me of what a great book Flash consistently is. I really enjoy your show and will keep listening. Lynn Walker. First of all, let me congratulate you on possibly the most well-written email we've ever received. So,
simple answer: none of us read that Golden Age stuff.
Yeah,
that's really
that's
really the only reason.
You know,
I mean, that's why we spent so much time on Wally. It's because we just know who he is.
Knew him better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say we didn't do our research, but
I'd almost argue. I thought Barry Allen's death was pretty honorable.
Oh,
I did too.
I think he's this. I think Lynn. I assume it's a he. Lynn could also be a woman.
I don't know.
Is speaking more from far more experience with the character than we ever did. You know,
Like, we're only taking it from Crisis forward, where we already read him as a hero. And
I mean,
look back at that.
Because just from what I remember reading a few issues of the original Flash series, to me, I see Barry Allen as a better Flash being dead. I think it means more to the legacy of the Flash and who Wally is now because of his death. Maybe if I would have read more of Barry Allen when he was the Flash at the time, you know, my opinion would be changed.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in that episode, I read at least 2.5, maybe 3 years of Flash before Crisis, but that still wasn't enough for me to go, no, they can't change the Flash. You know what I mean? And so he's speaking from someone who's very, obviously he read it a long time, and I know there were people who thought that the death in Crisis was too quick and too easy and with not enough fanfare. Whereas I thought it was fine. But you're gonna have people like, and actually I'm glad he did say that, because I always wondered, I always wonder who out there did not appreciate. Were there Flash fans who were like, no, how can they do that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I haven't finished it, but Lynn, I think you should read, if you haven't, the Crisis novel by Wolfman, because it focuses on the whole Crisis from Flash's point of view.
Barry Allen.
Yeah. And I think it'll give you a little more insight into perhaps how important his role in Crisis was, and might change your opinion a little bit of Crisis. So,
good email. Good feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, it's so long. But then as I was reading it, it made perfect sense, and there was no
there was nothing that wasn't
droning on
needed.
and on. Right.
That's good.
So what are we talking about?
We're going to talk about. Let me get my paper. Comic Spire Guide. They just released their December sales and also an overlook of 2005. And we're also going to get on the phone listener John Mayo, the guy who has all the drawer boxes in his avatar on his phone.
Yeah.
He does this. He has a website, and he'll give it out when we call him. That he also takes a look at the sales figures and things like that. So I just wanted to get his input on it. They released top 300 comics and top 100 trade or graphic novels. And these are the paper that we have in our hands are estimated sales. IGN has they release actual sales, and I actually want to talk to John a little bit about the difference of that.
Hey, John.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, no problem. How's your Sunday night?
It's going pretty good. How about you guys?
Good. Where are you on your collection, putting all your books away and all that?
I am in the middle of Spectacular Spider-Man, and I'm about 71% of the way through. So I've still got about another 9,600 left to go.
Jesus. I hope you bought stock in that company.
Hey, the first question we're doing our December sales wrap.
Uh-huh.
First thing I want to ask is, the list that I got off of Comic Spire's Guide, and you can get it at cbgextra.com on their forums. John Jackson Miller does this every month. These are estimated sales. And then when you mentioned that IGN puts out actual sales, correct?
ICV2, actually.
Oh, ICV2, I'm sorry.
Well, they're not actual, they're estimates, but the difference is, and it's been a while since I've checked out the CBG website, although it's been on my list to check out recently. ICV2 is run by Milton Greep, who used to run Capital City Comics, the other distributor, before it went under, or got sold and all that stuff back in the day.
Okay.
Interesting.
So what he does is he takes the information from Diamond and then reverse engineers numbers to get the basic actual sales numbers of, how many estimated copies, which I'm sure the people at CBG are doing the exact same stuff.
Right.
The question is, what source data are they using compared to Milton? And, again, these are all estimates, so nobody on the planet except maybe, Bob Wayne has the actual numbers for anything.
I mean, CBG gets their stuff from Diamond as well, so...
Well, but there's another factor into it beyond just the Diamond stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because Diamond does everything off an order index, which is based off of what Batman sells for the month.
Right.
That's defined as 100.00. Everything else is relative to that. So you've got to take that number and then compare it to other numbers which, you're getting from different publishers, etc. So conceivably, if you're using different source data to reverse engineer what the Batman numbers are,
I see what you're saying.
You're going to have a little bit of flux in there.
Okay. They have down here their methodology. Diamond keys orders for all comics it lists sales to Batman, with one order index point being equal to 1% of that title's order. Using actual Diamond final orders from titles accounting for more than 25% of Diamond's top 300, CBG determines that 1 point on Diamond's order index was likely to equal 631 comic books, with a 95% probability that the real figure was between 630 and 632.
Now, what number are they using for that again? 630?
They said 1 point equals 631 comic books.
Okay. ICV2 hasn't put up their numbers for the month since, the stuff just came out Friday.
Right.
But they go through basically the exact same process.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever compared theirs with CBG?
Yes, I did. I've got a spreadsheet, from hell, essentially, that covers the final order sales going back to when they started doing final order sales in March 2003.
Uh-huh.
And pulling the numbers from ICV2 and Comics Retailer, which is done by CBG, so I'm assuming it's the same numbers. I've compared about a year's worth of stuff back around 2003 to 2004. Sometimes they were within, tenths of a point or whatever. Other times they were off by a little bit more than that. Usually they're within a couple of points. I'm only seeing one case where they seem to have a big discrepancy of like 20 or 30 points or something.
So that's almost 20 times 600 comics, right?
Well,
I mean, according to CBG.
But you've also got to factor in that there's so many things that reduce the accuracy of these numbers. The order index only goes to 2 decimal points. Okay, so that means already you're dealing in hundreds or thousands of comics versus down to an actual comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really talking about having that, 1 point of the Diamond order index equaling, is it either, 1,490 or 1,471. So really we're only talking about, 19 copies, per Diamond order index point.
Right.
So, I mean, there's definite, room for interpretation on these numbers.
Sure. And that's the other thing that we, when we talked about this before, these aren't actual sales. This is not the number, the unit, the money that this isn't, this is, 2,000 comics. That's not how many readers bought these comics. It's just how many retailers estimated ordered these books.
Well, and it's not even all of that.
No?
Okay, for starters, you're totally right that it's not what the end readers are ordering at all.
Right.
In some cases, you're going to have thousands of these copies sitting in bargain bins or on store shelves, whatever. This is nowhere near sell-through information, and that just doesn't exist. But the other thing is this is only the final orders for retailers for that month. Now, normally, you're going to have a little bit of reorder activity, more with DC than with Marvel, just because of their business practices. But in some cases, that can really add up. For example, Villains United #1. When that first came out in that month, it sold around, we'll say, 97,000 copies. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the months after that, the reorder activity totaled up to about 19,500 copies. So that's nearly another 20,000 copies that didn't show up in that first month.
Right. Okay, so yeah, that's actually something I was going to touch on later. I thought, but as far as the month goes, as far as the month that they are ordering, that's basically what these lists are for.
Yeah.
Right, because on my list, I actually highlighted like Justice #1 for December 2005. There already is a Justice #3, which is listed at #4.
And that's some of the reorder activity.
Right, and then they have Justice #1 down at 190, and they, whoever ordered another 7,900 copies of that.
Right.
Right. So I mean, yeah, okay. So that's part of the figures that it's just I can't imagine why they. Do you think maybe if they would go to the, at the supermarket you scan the UPC symbol? If all the comics across retailers and everybody who sells, if they would all go to that system, would we be able to get that list?
Yes and no. That is actually a very interesting point you bring up. The other thing these numbers only include is the direct market, comic book stores.
Right. It's not newsstand. It's not subscription.
It's not bookstores.
Right.
Okay. Now with comics, that's not that big of a deal. With trade paperbacks, it's a huge issue.
Plus, there's also when they factor in the market value. They also include magazines, but also regular magazines, not just comic magazines. So there is a little. If they would take some of the regular magazines that Diamond puts out in their previews, we would actually get more of an understanding. Maybe that pie chart would move in different places.
Oh, it would move drastically.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the stuff for December, you have a couple of companies that are in the top 20 for market share that didn't have any comics come out. I mean, Wizard Entertainment's a good example of that. I mean, that is Wizard, the magazine, sales, essentially, and that's almost all of it.
Right.
Okay? So, I mean, that's a couple of percent right there to take out, and that would shift numbers around drastically.
Right.
So you've got that. Now, going back to the sell-through information and the UPC scan and stuff, there is a company called BookScan that does this for books. I haven't actually gotten a hold of that information. I haven't had the time to go chase that down and then figure out what I'd do with it once I got it.
You got too many long boxes to go through.
Exactly. But that has actual sell-through information, because what that's doing is whenever you go to Barnes & Noble or Walden Books or whatever, and they scan the UPC code and stuff, that's where they're getting their information.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if such a thing existed for comic books, that would just be incredible.
Well, it does exist. I know it exists because Humongo down in Pottstown, they use that system.
They sure do.
And he even said to me...
But the organization that collects that data doesn't exist.
I see what you're saying. But what he said to me was he can't see how any comic retailer can do business without it.
Well, there's a program called Comtrack that one of the local stores I used to deal with here in town used, and they'd scan the stuff in, and, I'd have an itemized receipt of every comic I got. It was awesome and stuff. But that's not collecting data across the industry. That was just for that store.
Right.
And I agree. I don't know how comic stores can do without that, because the most vital piece of information for any retailer these days is what's selling, when's it selling, and, who's getting it. Is it pull customers? Is it off the rack? That sort of information.
I mean, I guess the obvious answer is it probably costs too much to get a system like that in. And, we know certain comic stores that don't even have credit card swipe machines, and so they're not about to get a scanning thing either.
The sad thing is that, for a while, Radio Shack was giving away a free scanner. You had to buy the software, but, the freaking scanner was free, so that technology is not that expensive.
Actually, you didn't even have to buy the software if it's the QCat you're talking about.
Yeah, I was talking about the QCat. Right, no, I meant if you wanted to... I'm talking about a retailer would have to buy some sort of software, but the physical scanning device could be gotten very cheaply, if not free.
I never thought of that, being
Shane's
able to
gonna go
scan my own
for it.
collection in using something like that.
Well, the problem for using it for your own collection is you've then got to get the data that translates the UPC code into something meaningful.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Because believe me, if such a thing could be done, I'd be doing it.
Beep, beep, beep.
Almost the
Done.
perfect plan.
Although it's funny because back when I was dealing with that local store that used Comtrack and scanned everything with the barcode, it took forever to check out. Because, they'd have to swipe each one of, everything I got. It takes, a second or two each, and, that adds up with the amount I buy.
Well, I guess for someone.
Ditto.
But getting those itemized receipts, did you keep all of them just for the hell of it, just to look back at what you bought when you bought it?
Most definitely.
Yes.
That's an
the collector
invaluable
inside
resource.
of you goes crazy.
And it's funny because I moved back into Austin in just after Memorial Day 2000. Started dealing with that shop, and was getting the itemized receipts, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is awesome. I can use it to keep my database up to date or whatnot. But then some stuff happened at work where I decided to go and back through all those receipts and, put together an Excel spreadsheet of, okay, what did I buy each week, what's my weekly spending, all that kind of stuff. So I've got, from that point pretty much forward exactly what I've been spending every week. And it's a scary amount.
I don't think I'd want to look at my own tally for you.
My wife looks at my tally, and I don't want her to tell me.
I guarantee you guys have nothing to worry about once you would compare it to mine.
I'm going to use you when I talk to my wife next time.
What is your collection ranging at right now, the total?
Total number of comics?
Yeah.
It is coming in at 33,355 according to my spreadsheet.
Wow.
33,000?
And that's not including my Marvel Masterworks and some of my hardbacks and stuff like that. They're not in the spreadsheet yet.
Wow.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be more than that, actually.
Well, I think a lot of people overestimate how many comics they've got based on what they think fits in a long box.
Right.
For instance, the guy who lost his entire collection in New Orleans.
Yeah. Leo McGovern.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, talk about a tragic story. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell I'd do if I went through something like that. But I'm curious how many long boxes he has, because looking at the photos and stuff, his estimate of 40,000 just seemed, a little high, particularly given how much physical space my collection of 33,000 is taking up at my house.
Unless they were in the basement, and he just never took pictures of that.
It could be, and maybe he didn't have them, with boards and stuff, because that adds to the volume and stuff like that. I'm certainly not doubting his loss in any way,
Right.
but it's easy to just say, gosh, this box will hold, 235 or whatever, therefore multiply it out. And, some comics are just bigger than others.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. That's about the estimate that I always use, 230 to 250.
I knew exactly because I had them all on my computer.
Well, when I was ordering the drawer boxes, I, was looking at the estimate on their website of 235 per, and then, was a bit more conservative with that when trying to figure out how many I needed, and I'm glad I was, because I'm trying to leave in space for future issues, so I don't have to go move stuff from box to box.
Exactly.
And I'm averaging just over 200 per box. But again, I'm leaving some ample space for growth.
Sure.
I have a question. Something like that. Are you doing, like, if you have a quick run of, like, all your Batmans, would that just be a box by themselves? Or you're pretty much just putting, if you can get the next thing after your Batman's into that box, you're going to keep going at, or do you keep each box divided into your titles?
If I had a box per title, I'd need another few thousand boxes. I just keep going. I start with the letter A, move forward, and what I do is, like, when I hit Batman, for instance, these boxes came with a bunch of the cardboard dividers.
Mm-hmm.
I toss a dozen in after Batman to where it's like, okay, I'll take those out. That'll be room for the next 2 years' worth of comics.
Makes sense.
That's a good plan.
But it's amazing how fast that 2 years goes by, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think, I just did this.
Well, let's go back to our list because we're totally on a tangent here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So with all that in mind, with all what we just talked about in mind, take these estimates for what they are. I assume you have the list in front of you as well, John?
Oh, yes. I'm sitting in front of my computer. I've been looking at it for a little bit, and so, yeah.
There was a couple things that I wanted to point out. in the top 20, I can't say that I disagree with what's in the top 20 as far as pure sales, not content, not quality. All of a sudden I'm going to get emails and stuff on the forum. But I mean, as far as what the companies are trying to push, it's obvious that stuff is selling.
Well, yeah, there are a couple of things, like Infinite Crisis being number one. Gee, no surprise there.
Right.
He's got a lot of momentum behind it, and that's where it's all coming to fruition. There are a few things up near the top 20 that did surprise me and kind of disappoint me. And, again, this is not content, but this is more publishing philosophy. Mm-hmm. If you look at slots 15 and 17, we've got 2 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Great title, no issues with it being, that high on the list and whatnot. But if I were a publisher, I would want to have the most market share I could with the fewest comics I could. Okay, so the fact that Marvel is doubling up on a number of titles in any given month, such as this month, not only is it Ultimate Spider-Man, but 2 issues of X-Men, 2 issues of Spider-Man Black Cat, which I'd like to discuss in a few minutes.
2 issues of X-Factor.
Exactly.
And the second issue is always lower.
Yes. Now, what I take that to mean, and this was much more obvious back in the pre-order days than with the final order days, is that the retailers are expecting readers to drop the title over time. Now, with X Factor, issues 1 and 2 being that close together, I see as a fairly good sign, although it's still, about a 10,000 copy drop.
And it's also early in the run, and those numbers are probably going to drop.
Well, yes and no. It's hard to tell because all of this is done sight unseen from the retailer perspective. Now that the first issue or 2 is out and people can be reading them and telling their retailer, yes, I want it, no, I don't, whatever, we'll start to get more accurate numbers as time goes on.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Because actually, when I looked through this December sales to November sales, there were 4, and there might be more that I missed, but there were 4 titles that actually increased from November to December. Every other book went down by some margin. Every book. I mean, not even in the top 10, but all the way down to the top 3. Every book decreases as the month went on.
That doesn't surprise me at all. My belief is that the tendency for every comic is to have attrition in sales. And that if you've got a book that doesn't, that's the exception, and they're doing something right.
And but the scary thing is like, do you go back even further and like, how much difference from like the January list, and then how much difference from next December? I mean, are numbers going to drop? Because they said in this report that...
Which is why they keep releasing new number 1s.
Well, exactly. They said in the report that... let me just find it. That even though the market... where the hell is it? Even though that the total amount for December was higher, there also still was an increase in how many comics were purchased, which is a good sign, they say. But still, I was amazed at some by 10,000, some by 20,000, some just by 500 or whatever. But every single book is going lower and lower month to month.
Well, I mean that's one of my huge concerns, and I'm sure you've seen my posts on the forums about monthlies versus trade paperbacks. I mean, I totally understand why people choose to get the trade paperbacks in place of the monthlies, and if that works for them, they should do that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. The problem I have is more from the publisher perspective of they're undercutting their own sales. Mm-hmm. And there is going to come a point where there is a I don't want to say a glass floor or whatever, but once sales go so low, you can't afford to come out with a comic. It's just the cost of producing the content has to get spread across so few copies of the comic book.
Right.
It's just not cost effective.
Right. Well, those 4 that I mentioned that actually had an increase had obvious tie-ins to either Infinite Crisis or Spider-Man the Other. Marvel Knights Spider-Man 20 in November went from 64,000 to 68,000 in December. With Marvel Knights 21. Outsiders went from 44,000 to 46 with an Infinite Crisis tie-in. Marvel's Knight Spider-Man is part of the other storyline.
Right, right.
Firestorm went from 23,000 to 23,500, and the other big jump was Catwoman 50 for obvious reasons, for just being a 50th, and also for it's kind of like an unofficial Infinite Crisis tie-in, or actually I should say Identity Crisis tie-in.
Well, right, with Zatanna on the cover and stuff.
Right.
I'm sure that helped.
You know, what's interesting about that is you mentioned the Spider-Man one. You go, okay, so they made this big deal out of this crossover, and that title only sold an extra 4,000 copies, which seems like a drop in the bucket. It's like, 4,000, not 40,000 more because of the crossover, just 4,000.
And it was the only one of the three titles that actually amped up, which, I mean, obviously...
Maybe it was the least read of all the Spider-Man titles.
Which I'm pretty sure that is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, crossovers are always going to bump stuff up. The problem is, after that crossover ends, most of that bump up goes away.
Right.
You get a little, carryover, but not much.
Right.
I think the best example of that kind of sales spike is Batman 619. That was probably the best-selling comic book out of the last 5 years. And, of course, the issue after that, things just start, I don't want to say tanking, but dropping, drastically. It sold about, a third of, for 620, that's what 619 did.
Was that Nightfall? No.
That was Hush.
Well, that was everything falling together. You had the end of the Hush storyline, you had multiple covers, and you had Jim Lee still in the art, and it was his last Batman thing for a while.
And then everybody fled.
Exactly.
Well, the next story, I don't blame him.
But see, and see, that part of that goes to the whole thing of, what I say, if you can get a creator on for 12 issues, 24 issues, you better follow it up with something just as good to keep because I'm that way. Wolverine, I stuck around for Mark Miller and John Romita Jr., but then I was gone.
Yeah, me too.
I fled.
Well, and again, if I were a publisher, I would want something that's, more slow and steady than, hot and then gone the next month.
I do have to say Green Lantern 6, though, up at number 8, that still continues to be in the top 10. That's kind of cool. I mean,
it does seem to be doing very well and staying very strong.
With no tie-ins other than just Jeff Johns writing it and decent artwork,
I was very surprised about All-Star Batman. For as terrible as everyone talks about the story, I guess everyone's just still getting it for the Jim Lee art. I don't know. I thought
probably
so many people dropped it after the first issue, especially after the second issue.
You know what I think it is? And I only read the first issue, and I enjoyed the first issue.
I did too.
I don't know about 2 and 3. I'm waiting for the trade, of course. But we all know that of all the people that are so vocal on the internet, it's like 1 to 2% of the comic reading public.
I don't know that I agree with that, Brian.
Well, you think 5 to 10? What do you think?
Well, it depends which comic you're talking about. Certainly with All-Star Batman and Robin, it's a small percentage. But, I mean, you've got to take into account that you have more listeners than some comics have readers.
That is true.
Yeah, I guess.
But you go way down into the,
But let's still say that, the vocal few often don't represent the majority opinion.
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong on that, but we really have no evidence one way or the other on that.
I think with this issue with the Jim Lee, though, I think there are far more Jim Lee fans that are buying it, like Shane said, than people who... Look at the people who hate it on the forum. They're still buying it.
Oh, yeah. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of it, too. I was just amazed that I thought it was so widespread that people would have dropped it, that it would be lower on the list.
Yeah.
I thought it'd still be there. I thought even top 100, but to be all the way up there.
I think it's more an issue that people aren't saying it's bad. I think they're saying they don't like it. Because I had major issues with the second issue of it. But, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I disliked about it was so effective in the way they portrayed Batman, and I just didn't agree with that portrayal. So it was well done, just not to my taste.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Now, is this something that... I mean, I hope this is something that can happen, that the top 6 titles, and other than Infinite Crisis, I don't think any of the other ones had variant covers. 50-50 split variant covers, I should say.
Right.
That, the top 6 broke the 100,000 mark. And I can remember the 100,000 mark being celebrated, then the 200,000 mark. And, so, I mean, on that aspect... if we start seeing more of that, like maybe the top 8 and then the top 10 break, that would be exciting.
Well, I agree that's a good thing, but let's also take a look at these that broke that 100,000 mark. Infinite Crisis Limited Series, it's going to go away.
Right, and also variant cover.
Well, and variant cover.
Right.
Okay. All-Star Batman and Robin, eventually that creative team's going to leave, so that's going to plummet.
And that even had a limited variant cover.
Did it?
Yeah, Frank Miller did a cover for that of Black Canary.
But that was released
You're
later,
right.
though, wasn't it?
What's that?
That wasn't released at the same time as this, though, was it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that because Lem had the regular cover on the shelf, and then the next week, I saw this Frank Miller one that I had never seen before. So it wasn't too far off. I'm not sure if it was released at the same time or not.
Right. But again, another variant cover. Justice Limited Series, eventually that's going to go off. Mm-hmm. Superman, Batman, in 2 issues, they switch creative teams, don't they?
I think so.
Yeah,
26.
Yeah. Right.
And then Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk, 6-issue limited series.
Well, but the Superman Batman's been around for almost 25 issues, and it's been in the top.
Agreed, but the question is, who are they going to follow up with the next creative team?
Right, but I don't want to shortchange that 25 issue. I'd rather not compare a 25 issue run to a 6-issue run. You know what I'm saying?
That's totally fair, and I totally agree with that.
Same thing with Ultimates. You could say it's Ultimates. Well, that one didn't break the 100,000, but
I think it did, but just barely.
According to these estimates. But and we all, like we just said it, we're going to have new number ones. We're going to have, but I mean, if they can start pushing things like New Avengers and Superman, Batman, and who knows, if Green Lantern last month was at 92,000, those are still good numbers. I'm not saying the industry suddenly saved, but it's nice to see regular things, semi-regular or regular, whatever you want to call them, breaking these numbers.
Well, and again, particularly things that don't have multiple covers, and therefore
Right.
presumably people are only buying one copy.
Right.
But yes, I agree that's a good thing.
I tell you what, looking at, if we go to the opposite end of the spectrum, how much longer can Alias Comics stay in business?
It's funny because I had gone through the list and highlighted a couple of comics near the bottom that I read, and a lot of them are the Alias ones, things like 13 and whatnot. And, I mean, I don't know how some of these companies are making any money to begin with, even with, some of the lower DC and Marvel sales. But, yeah, with these independents, it's almost like, they're just throwing money away, it seems like.
But do they have higher... Isn't their overhead smaller, though? I mean, wouldn't they be make...
Yeah, but, I mean, do the math on...
Well, 13, number 5, I've got at around 2,300 copies.
Right.
Okay, now let's assume you're paying for content. Now, on this one, that's possibly a little bit of a stretch because I believe it's based on a French comic.
Yeah, it's been the top-selling European comic for the past 20 years, so it's just reprints.
But they still had to
They're
pay for a
the license
translator
or
and a
whatever,
letterer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Well,
now you've got to leverage that cost against only 2,300 copies. So, I mean, it gets a little tough.
Well, let's put it this way. When whatever year, 10, 12 years ago, whatever, when I published my independent comic, we sold, God, I don't know, maybe like 1,200, maybe 1,300 copies, something like that. I guess I think that's about it. And that was a black and white book, and we didn't pay anything because it was all done by us, written by a guy, drawn for free, pencil. I think we paid Dan Atkins to ink the cover or something. We either just barely broke even or lost a little bit of money. I can't remember. I think we just barely broke even. So these guys are coloring. All these books are in full color, so it costs more to print. And they have like all these different creative teams. Some of them are got to be getting paid money for something. So I don't know how they are just barely staying alive unless they're just gambling that eventually it'll pick up steam.
I guess that's probably what they have to do.
I don't know.
Or you just got to put out so much that you hope, people are picking up.
I mean, you got, the second offering of All-Star Superman, outselling these other books of first issues. The first round of
first
sales.
printing or whatever, yeah.
That's just amazing.
Well,
I
and
mean, it
what's funny
sucks
is
because I
some of
hope that these places can stay in business.
Well, and that's why they push it. I mean, that's why the listeners push it, and that's why the indie publishers on our forum push it. Because they it's a tough fight for market share and shelf space.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, some people don't even realize these comics exist.
Yeah.
One of the ones I read tonight was Freefall #1 from Narwhal or whatever it is, Publishing. Great comic. It's at $294 on the list. It sold, around 1,900 copies. Full color, as near as I can tell, new material. Now, granted, it had a $3.99 cover price, and I'm sure that helped recoup their costs. But I'm sure they're not making big bucks off this. I mean, the numbers just don't add up.
Yeah.
But then there's another one I'm looking at, number 113, Marvel Team Up, 20,000 copies. That's still it. It's like no matter how much we talk about how good it is, no matter how much everybody on the internet talks about how good it is, it seems like no one's buying it. I just don't understand.
I wonder if a lot of longtime fans fear that it was the same old Marvel Team Up, even though everyone's talking about it, even though Robert Kirkman's writing it and everyone knows about, well, hopefully everyone knows about Walking Dead, but I wonder if their fear about it being quirky and weird in a not-so-good way.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, that's just, for me, I know Marvel's not going to cancel it because it's a Robert Kirkman vehicle, and eventually it hopefully will pick up steam, but it's just too close to that cutoff point for me, for my comfort. I want to see that.
Maybe there's
at 30 to 40,000.
And John, maybe this is something you can touch on, but it seems to me somewhere on this list, like I don't know if it starts at but if it starts at number 50 or 75 or 70, somewhere on this list, the numbers have to, I assume, match the same numbers of people reading the comics. You know what I mean?
I disagree with that. The reason I say that is, again, take the 20,000 or so copies of Marvel Team Up. Somewhere there's got to be a copy sitting on a shelf.
Well, I understand that, but I mean the ratio has to shrink somewhere. Obviously, Infinite Crisis #3 selling 188,000.
Agreed. 50 copies sitting on a shelf is less of an issue for that than for Marvel Team Up or Freefall or whatever.
But where Fallen Angel #1 that sold 12,000. Are we starting to get closer to even? I'm not talking just 100, but maybe in a 1,000 range. Are we starting to? I wonder where that is, and I'm sure that's nobody can define that, but somewhere along here that has to be.
I don't know. My stand on the issue is that the big problem facing the industry in terms of sales is information. I think there are a lot of people who aren't getting certain books that they would enjoy simply because they don't know about them or don't know they would enjoy them.
That's why there's Comic
we're
Geek
trying
Speak.
so hard.
Exactly. You guys are doing an excellent job on that.
Because just even in my own right, they've just us talking about things have got me to buy so many more books that I'm reading.
Well, and John pointed earlier where he said about that we have more listeners that sell books. I actually wrote this in my notes. I went, you know what? Like, say I don't know what the magical number is, but let's just take 2,000. For some of these smaller books, if 2,000 listeners, and I know this is impossible, went out and pre-ordered, not just picked up from the shelf, but pre-ordered one of these smaller books, that could make the difference.
Yeah, it could double their sales.
Yeah,
Claypool is a good example of that.
Claypool, Boom Studios, Drawn in Quarterly. I mean, there are some.
And there's a lot more independent companies that I look at now thoroughly that I never looked at before. Past just a couple pages skimming through, like I actually in-depthly look at who's writing it, who's drawing it, what the content is. It's something I'd enjoy.
I'll tell you what, I was talking with Kevin last weekend about a book that's going to be coming out later this year that I won't get into right now, but I said I think with our listeners that we could almost make or break the book depending on our review, and it's not to...
I don't think we're that close.
Well,
not there
well,
yet.
I think in some cases you are. If every one of your listeners, pre-ordered a copy of Soul Searchers whatever the next
76.
issue is,
yeah,
it would actually start to show up on the top 300 list.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I look at things like at 253, the 10 one-shot from Boom Studios was by Keith Giffen, and I bought that. Sold 2,800 copies. Optic Nerve, which I hear good things about from Drawn Quarterly, at 245. Maze Agency #1 from IDW, 225. Atomica is at $2.19, number 5 from Speakeasy.
Mm-hmm.
Fear Agent. There are a lot of people who enjoy Fear Agent.
I got number 2. I have to find number 1.
It's at $2.11.
I mean, just look at for the book of the month. How many times did our book of the month jack up on the amount of sales?
I think all but one. It went to number 1 on in-stock trades all but one time, I think.
So, I mean, right there tells you the influence of what this podcast has.
Have you guys compared those bumps with the bumps on the graphic novel charts? I mean, because with in-stock trades, you're basically telling everyone who's listening to your podcast, if you want to do it, here's a good place to get it. I think that's a win-win for everybody.
Sure. Well, I did see number 2 is Fables Volume 6. In my egotistical mind, I went, that's because of us.
Point proven. Okay, move on.
No, I'm kidding.
Let's talk about trades.
Yeah, let's go
these
to that.
numbers are
crazy,
so low compared to what I would have thought. But I guess knowing that this does not include Borders and Barnes and Noble, that's big, because if
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how many of those stores there are in the country combined, but if all those locations got one copy each, some of these numbers are going to double.
Well, and also consider the fact this is only for the current month.
Right.
If you look down at slot 43, you'll see Watchmen, which, came out a little while ago.
And 99 has Crisis on Infinite Earths.
That was the other one I was just going to point out.
That's true. That's continuous.
Yeah.
Most of these are available over and over again.
But I did thought those two. I thought that was kind of cool. They're still on this damn list.
Well, and what I was just going to say, I mean, you look at that, and Watchmen outsold Gravity.
Yeah.
And and I'm looking at The Walking Dead, that hardcover sold 1,700 copies at $100 each. Gravity sold 1,300 copies, and the damn thing's only $8.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with trade paperbacks, they've gone away. Once people have decided to get the trade, they've already decided to wait beyond when the monthly issues came out. Once you've made that decision to wait, there's no real incentive to get it the instant the trade paperback comes out. So waiting for the trade is not just waiting for it to be released, but waiting for you to then feel like, yeah, I'll actually get around to buying it.
That's true. I never thought about it that way, because I'm so must get it the second it's available.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people are obviously just now deciding to pick up Watchmen, pick up Crisis, etc. So,
there were some, let's see, on the top 10 trade, we had that Samurai Executioner, which, Brian, you said you're reading, right?
Well, Bob in California sent me the first two, and I really liked them, and I'm waiting. Eventually, I will pick up number 3 and so forth.
I'm just trying to pick things. That's the first non-Marvel DC. That's from Dark Horse, and then Naruto, Volume 8. That's from Viz.
Now, what I found interesting was Villains United and the Rann-Thanagar War.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those came in at about 10% what the monthly series was selling.
Oh.
And I tend to use that just as a ballpark estimate of, trade versus the monthly.
OMAC, I think, came out at like 10,000 last month at number 1. I think that's what I saw from last month's list.
This Fables trade, I'm looking at Fables number 44 sold only 24,500 copies, yet the Fables trade sold 7,000 copies. So, that's a really high, it's like 3.5 times, that's a really high percentage of trade sales of the readers of that book.
Yeah, I guess when you get down to the things that aren't so mainstream and aren't so...
Well, and also, Vertigo titles, I think, are going to skew very differently than the mainstream Marvel and DC.
And they allow for that almost in the way they push
pretty much plan for you, because their trades are so religious.
Yeah.
It's an interesting... One thing I wanted to point out also, they have some price analysis things here. The average comic book on Diamond's top 300 list in December 2005 cost $3.27, up a whopping 19 cents over the same month in 2004. Again, we're dealing with estimates and things here. The cost of the average comic book Diamond sold was $3.05, up from $2.90 last year. The average price of the comics that made the top 25 was $2.88, up from $2.71 in 2074.
I just want to thank Cameron for extending the discount to 40% at DCBS.
5% more books for all of us, right?
Damn straight.
And that just means that we're going to buy more books.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to look at some of the backlist items and stuff. It's like, I don't know that I need to be doing that.
You know, and I know I say this a lot, but more and more I think about it. It's like voting. You know, if you want your voice heard, you need to vote. If you want your comics around, you need to pre-order. I don't begrudge anybody going into a store and going, "Oh, that looks kind of cool. I'll pick that up," because you don't know about it. But if
after you know about it,
yeah. If you're a Firestorm fan, a Runaways, Marvel team up, if you're some of these, you know, they just announced that Spider-Girl's being canceled. But when you look at where it's at
for the third time, third or fourth time,
right. When I see it,
I have a feeling it'll stick this time.
yeah.
It's going to end its run at 100. You know, I have down Spider-Girl 93 is at 125 at 17,000 copies. That's, you know, as far as what Marvel has to look at, that's Axe Point. You know, they got to go, no, we're no longer making our money back. So, I mean, if you're a fan of this stuff that's in the mid-range or lower, you got to pre-order. You got to show these people where these numbers are.
Well, I think that title, over most others, has done gangbusters in coming back and getting a second, third, fourth life. When it was originally going to be canceled, who knows how long ago now.
Yeah.
Well, it was supposed to end at one point around issue 81 and then a few times before that. But, I mean, you look over the last year or so, and it's just slow attrition. It's losing a couple hundred readers each month.
Sure.
But that is one book that actually had fan loyalty influence by picking it up and extending the life of that book for a little bit longer.
Well, for a lot longer. I mean, a couple of years.
Yeah.
And now they're even digesting the whole thing. I mean, they're up to volume 3 or something already of reprinting. So the thing almost died, like probably halfway through its life, and now they're making it available in trade format to. Yeah.
Well, I got to wonder how much of it is due to Ariana or whatever.
Rania, yeah. I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you've got two Spider-Girl type characters. I mean, it just seems like duplicate, you know. Content, not duplicate content effort. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Too close.
We're getting near the end. Quick, if you can, in a nutshell, talk about Spider-Man Black Cat, because you said you wanted to quick mention something.
Oh, yeah. I found it very interesting because I looked at the sales both for the current month, but then I dug up the pre-order information for the series. Now, pre-order was not the actual orders, but what, you know, the retailers were wanting to get.
Mm-hmm.
Number one was at about 127,000 copies.
Okay.
2 was at about 109,000 copies. 3 about 106,000 copies. All of these were, you know, ranked 2, 5, and 7. But now you get to the pre-orders for issue number 4, and now we have actual orders to compare it to a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
And number 4 had pre-orders at 101,000 copies. Now, it sold about 60% of that. And that ratio holds true for number 5, which had pre-orders of just over 98,000 copies, but only sold about 54,000. So, I mean, it goes back to that thread on the forums not too long ago about, you know, do you want it good or do you want it now? And this kind of, you know, insane delay between issues
Cost them money.
Oh, big time. It essentially cost them the entire circulation of, say, Detective Comics for the month.
Now, wait a minute. You said they pre-ordered, but they only got... How did they get...
No.
Pre-ordered 2 years ago.
Exactly.
But then ordered this time around.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that, I have it highlighted on my list. I said, look at that. Look how far down those two books are.
Yeah.
And if it would have been out when it needed to, they would have made the money.
I'd have picked it up if it would have been out when they needed to be. But
well, and it looks like retailers were expecting a drop of about 3,000 between those two issues.
Right. See, get the books out.
Exactly. I mean, do it on time, particularly for a damn limited series.
Yeah, exactly. All right, John. Wow, that was great.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
That's our most in-depth analysis of sales that we've done yet.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I'm looking forward to looking at the numbers for March. I think that's going to be real interesting with the 1 year later stuff from DC,
mm-hmm.
and I'm curious if that gamble's going to pay off for them or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that many changes in the publishing lineup is just a huge risk. I mean, I expect it to pay off gangbusters for them, but time will tell.
Right.
And speaking of attrition, it'll be interesting to see how the sales of 52 do.
Yeah,
you know, we have 200,000, and then by the end of 52, you see, 25,000 or whatever. It would be interesting.
Well, Yeah, because particularly since retailers are going to have to order the first, dozen or so sight unseen.
Right.
Yeah.
That is going to be very fascinating to watch.
All right, John. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad you were home.
Okay, happy to do it. You want to do it again, let me know.
We'll keep you in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives us credibility.
I give you credibility. Wow, that's a scary thought.
Well, you sound like you know what you're talking about, so we'll take your word for it.
Well, I've been looking at these numbers for, about 4 or 5 years now, having, given some thought to going into the publishing, and each time looking at these numbers thinking I'd lose my shirt.
Yeah. Give us your website where these things are, if you want it to be out there.
Oh, certainly. It's at www.comicbookpage.com. I've got charts of all the sales information and stuff that I update, once in a blue moon, or if somebody says, hey, update it. I don't have the December stuff up there. It'll probably be another couple of days or a week, depending how things are at work. Other things I've got on my website, you guys have mentioned going to the San Diego Comic Book Convention. Back in 2001 and 2002, I took a digital camera with me and took photos of basically every booth there.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
So if you want to get a feel for the scope of that kind of convention...
That's great.
None of these guys have been there, and I'm just thinking to myself, how do you even keep track of that? My God, how many memory cards did you use? Holy crap.
I have one of the Sony Mavicas with the CD.
Yeah, okay.
So, I take 180 photos, replace the battery, the CD with a fresh one, keep going.
Wow. That's awesome. All right. Then we look forward to seeing you on the forum, and we'll be talking.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's incredible. Every booth. Wow.
Yeah, you can't even imagine what a daunting task that would be.
Like, how did he see anything else?
I don't know. I just don't know. Got just enough time, Peter.
Gonna get quizzed on sales numbers.
Yeah. In 1978, what book sold?
I found it interesting how every time Peter would say, well, this is what this means, and he would go, well, actually, it means this.
All
But then
right.
he always agreed with me afterwards.
So, yeah.
This Stump the Rios was submitted by Matt Kramer, Darth Kramer on the board.
Okay.
So here we go. Question number 1, Marvel. What was the name of the scientific complex where him, later known as Adam Warlock, was created by the group
Enclave.
by the group known as the Enclave?
The Beehive.
That is correct.
Thank you, Marvel Universe. And Jack Kirby. I think that was Jack Kirby.
Question 2, DC. Boston Brand, the acrobat and ghost known as Deadman, had an identical twin brother who briefly took up the mantle as Deadman, following Boston's death to investigate his brother's murder. What was his brother's name?
Cleveland.
That is correct. Darth, you're not doing so
The
hot.
guy who killed him was Hook. Now I'm just showing off.
Question 3, Independent. In the 1990s, Dark Horse Comics attempted to create a universe known as Comics' Greatest World, which was centered around 4 different locations, 3 of which being cities, the other being the Vortex. Where was the Vortex located?
No idea.
Oh.
No, me either.
Oh.
I remember ads for that, but no, I never read that.
I have all those issues if you'd like to read them. Yeah. The top secret army base, Cinnabar Flats. There you go.
Almost
Quarter in the
almost
jar.
Took it. Quarter in the jar.
Yeah, that's something, isn't it?
Thanks for kicking him in the balls with that last one. After he was showing off from question 2.
Speaking of hardcovers, and that Deadman collection is gorgeous.
Oh yes, I picked that up.
That's brilliant.
I forget. It might have been after one of the Batman Neil Adams hardcovers that somehow I didn't realize there was a Deadman collection, and I looked at it online on eBay and whatnot, and then the next month when I put in orders, it was still on their backlist, and poop, I picked it up for like what did it retail for? 50?
Wasn't it 50 or 75?
If it was 50, I paid 35 for it because I felt good about getting it. Dead silence.
Got a voicemail here.
Okay.
It's
Hey guys, this is Lennon Patton with in Norman, Oklahoma. Big fan of the show. It's a companion when I'm working, especially when I'm traveling. And just wanted to give you major kudos on that. And I was having a discussion with my girlfriend last night. I wanted to get your guys' feedback on it. I was reading Alias. I'm going back and rereading the Alias trades, Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos, and my girlfriend made a comment that I thought was interesting. She said she liked the story and she liked the book and the concept, but the art really turned her off. I was just wondering, I haven't heard you guys talk about it, what are your thoughts on artists who are not really in the conventional superhero vein like a Michael Gaydos? Do you think it adds to the story, gives it an element that it wouldn't normally have, or distracts from it? Like in my girlfriend's case. Thanks so much again for your show, and look forward to hear what your thoughts on that are. Bye.
Well, does anybody else here read Alias?
I'm waiting for the omnibus.
I'm getting the omnibus, but I will tell you that I looked at one of the hardbacks, and it's going to distract me a little bit at first.
Well, I was going to say, I know you have a problem with this, but I'm thinking back to Batman issues with Kelly Jones and the way he drew everything in there completely took me away from the story because I couldn't stand it. It irritated the hell out of me.
Alias isn't your normal superhero.
Yeah, this is a crime noir, more or less, story, and so you got a guy who's drawing in a different style that I thought fit perfectly with that genre. Is a little rough around the edges, not real defined but that's kind of like what crime fiction is, The real world is rough around the edges, and so for me, it worked perfectly. And I think that it does have its place. I wouldn't want to read that on Captain America. That would not be the art that I would pick for something like that.
Right. The way I looked at it, I'm expecting it to distract me like Scott Collins did on Flash at first. It's going to take a couple issues, but then it'll fit. And just from hearing you talk about it alone over the past few months, that's just my take on my own personal opinion after looking at the hardback at the store, just thumbing through it. I'm going to get used to it, but it'll take a couple issues.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see many artists.
And I don't know that I, immediately liked it.
Right.
But once, and then see, because there is superhero stuff in that series, and you see it and you go, it actually kind of works. Like Luke Cage and things like that. Like again, those are not your mainstream superheroes, and I think it works fine.
For and Shane will agree, it doesn't work for me on Daredevil, though.
No, me either.
Sorry.
Me either.
You bastards.
I know. I'm sorry. I just want to real quick. Scott Beatty threw in his hat to the year in 2005 comics review.
Excellent.
He says, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the readers who made Nightwing Year 1 a sold-out success. Hello. In addition to the loyal and vocal minority who gave Son of Vulcan a try in a year that was otherwise so completely dominated by all things Infinite Crisis. I'll be back in 2006 with a 2-part JSA classified tale, in addition to various other projects. My thanks also to the great gang at Comic Geek Speak, who have a genuine enthusiasm for the medium with equal parts intellectual criticism and appreciation for all the fun parts of fandom. It's always a pleasure sitting in on the show with you guys. All for the best in 2006, Scott Beatty.
And by the way, in the brand new issue of CBG, Scott Beatty picks his top 10 comic covers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so
check it out.
All right, well, I guess we better wrap it up, huh?
Yep. This episode was sponsored by crazycomics.com, www.crazy.com, crazycomics.com. Thank you, Sam Vera, for joining us, and we'll be continuing to spotlight them throughout the month in February.
All right.
Thanks, John Mayo.
Thanks, John Mayo, for fantastic information and a frequent poster on the forum. If you'd like to send us an email, it's comicgeekspeak@gmail.com, and visit our website at www.comicgeekspeak.com. Big thanks to the guys at upallnightgaming.com for hosting the website. Vote for us at Podcast Alley. Last I checked, we were 23, I think. So we need to match 14 like we were last month.
Great.
Or beat it. Let's top 10 people. And as usual, we're brought to you in conjunction with worldfamouscomics.com, your spot on the internet for the best comic book and entertainment-related columns, contests, features, reviews, news, resources, and more. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.